Hi, welcome to Wrokdown. I'm Wendy Stapleton. Self-described as a singing dag in a crazy suit, our next guest was CEO of the Victorian Rock Foundation, the Melbourne Music Festival, and National Director of Oz Music. He's a singer, songwriter, music law lecturer, folklore specialist, but I think he's best known as the beloved one of the Bushwackers, Mr. Dobe Newton. Well, you are in a wacky suit.
Hello, dear.
This suit's fantastic. How many do you have?
28.
And I know you're telling the truth.
Yeah.
Well, Dobe, thank you for being our guest this evening. As I said in the intro, apart from being one of the Bushwackers, you actually really started off doing uni. Was it music?
No.
It wasn't music?
No, I was going to be a lawyer.
Oh.
Yeah, well, bad luck I didn't keep at it, eh?
Before that, though, when you were a kid,
Yeah.
did you have any longing to be a...
No.
You just wanted to be a lawyer?
I like dressing up, though. And lawyers dress up a bit, but not colourfully enough. No, I was... I didn't grow up in a particularly musical family, but I did grow up in the 60s, of course, and so you couldn't avoid music.
And especially being at uni.
And so I fell in love with all of that, and as I said, I started out to be a lawyer, but I was having much more fun playing music, and eventually, when I'd sort of exhausted every university course I could and had to think about getting a job.
A real job?
Yeah. I had to break it to my parents that I was actually going to join a band, which I did, and 38 years later, my mum almost thinks that's a real job now. Yeah.
Hey, was it the Bushwackers?
Yeah.
So that was the first band?
No, there was a pretty ordinary band at high school, a sort of a blues band of sorts, and I was the world's most average drummer, probably, but I moved to Perth and I couldn't take the drums, so when I got there, somebody handed me this thing with bottle tops. And
I was going to say, you are actually... Are you a champion, lagerphone?
I may have been a dreadful drummer, but I haven't...
Describe what a lagerphone is, because it's nothing that it sounds like, is it?
I should have brought one along. We
Didn't
could
you
have
bring
all had
one?
fun together.
I thought you had about 200.
Yes, but no, they're all broken. There's only one at a time that's operable.
So it is...
But it's that high and it's got two cross pieces on it and it's covered in bottle tops and you bang it up and down and hit it.
Where did you meet the guys?
I was in a band in Perth and we scored one of those P&O cruises, 21 days cruising the Pacific, and in those days they didn't pay you, but you were allowed to drink at staff rates. So we arrived back in Sydney after 21 days, having shouted everybody drinks and thought there'd be no tomorrow, and we got called to the purser's office. And they said, here's the stack of chits you've signed. And we said, it couldn't possibly be ours. And we looked at them and they were our signatures. So we paid off all the money we had, which meant that we didn't have enough money to get back to Perth. So we had to do a benefit concert.
Where were you?
In Sydney. So we did a benefit concert in Sydney, decided to go back via Melbourne. The car blew up on the way to Melbourne, so we had to do another benefit concert. And playing at that benefit concert was this bunch of young guys who'd just started a band. This was 71, and they were called the Bushwackers. And they were fantastic, and I loved all that. And so I went back to Perth, and they got in touch and said, look, would you move to Melbourne and join us? And I'd nearly finished whatever course it was then, and I said, I don't know. So anyway, I decided to finish the course. And 12 months later, they asked me to join. So I said to my new wife, how about pulling up stakes and moving to Melbourne, which she did.
From Perth?
From Perth, yeah. So like all Perth girls, she's just hanging out to go home, you know.
It's been, how many years now?
Nearly 40.
So I know that there was a huge culture of what do you call it? Country...
Folk we used to call it, yeah.
And you toured with Bushwackers through Europe with the, what was it,
Fairport Convention and Steel Eye Span and all those people. Yeah.
For a long time.
Yes, we... there was a huge folk revival happening in the 70s in Europe, led in that time by the electric folk rock bands that were starting to happen in England, and we heard that music and were completely captivated by it. And it was sort of this, it was an equivalent of what we were doing, but ours was much more Celtic influenced, as Australian music, folk music has been. And we wanted to go there and be part of the action, so in 1974, I think I wrote 300 letters to folk clubs in England saying, you know, give us a gig, we're terrific and you'll love it and everything, and we got one reply.
Yeah.
By which stage we'd already booked the fares because we were so confident that people would have loved us.
To see you.
Yeah. And so we had to go, really. So we
and
had
you
a big
did that one gig?
Yeah, well, we didn't tell anybody that. We had a big farewell concert at the Coppin Hall in Punt Road, and everybody came along to wish us well, and we just hoped they'd never find out that we had one folk club gig organised. Yeah, so we arrived and sat round for 5 months, tried to get a gig, and eventually did. And then the best thing that ever happened to us is we got involved in this controversy because we were booked to play at the Edinburgh Folk Festival.
Huge festival.
Huge festival, but we turned up with a PA because by that stage we were using electric instruments, not drums but bass and guitar. And this Scots patriot who was supporting us at this gig got up and delivered this incredibly inflammatory speech about how we'd come to steal the jobs of Scots artists, and here we were playing
because you were from Australia?
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say because you had amplification.
Oh no, well he went on about that. He
as well.
described the PA as Stonehenge-like pillars, which I was very taken with. But that was the best thing that ever happened to us because next week in Melody Maker there was this, you know, in the folk column,
tirade,
there was Bush Band Row, and we'd all of a sudden become a name on the scene, and of course everybody wanted to book us. Yeah. So that was great.
So that led then to these big tours throughout Europe with Fairport Convention and Steel Eye Span, and it was years. You did it.
We went there 6 times. We spent about 5.5 years living there altogether in the 70s and early 80s, based in London, living in Fulham and Putney, and touring to mainly Ireland, Scotland, England, Germany, France, a little bit in Scandinavia but not much. But Germany was huge.
Yeah.
And the best part about it was they actually, and Holland, we did a lot of busking to try and pay the rent. And the best thing about busking in Europe was that if you busked in England, they had pennies, and being the miserable buggers they are, you would end up with a hat full of pennies. But when you went and busked in Europe, they were far more generous.
Were they?
They were.
Phoenix,
yes, exactly. Shillings.
We'll take a break. When we come back, we want to talk about all the albums that the Bushwackers made.
Mm.
We'll be back soon.
Wrokdown.
Welcome back to Wrokdown. My special guest this evening is Mr. Bushwacker himself, Dobe Newton. So,
hello
Dobe,
again.
how are you?
Good.
We were in Europe.
Yes, we were in the 70s.
But I do believe that you have something special to show me. I think this was your album that you made in one day.
Yes, just before we went away. And we think...
It's pretty priceless.
We think it's the world's first picture record. There was only one problem with it, though, because being the 70s and they hadn't quite perfected the technique, and so when they put the photo on, They then put the grooves, the sound grooves.
So there's no songs on it?
Well, no, there were, but the chemicals that they used to fix the photos actually eat the song.
I knew you were going to say that.
So 6 months after it was sold,
it was
completely
useless.
Unplayable. It's a giant
That
coaster.
is very funny.
Yeah.
That is just wonderful. I love that. How many do you have?
Oh, no, that's it.
That's it?
Yeah, but in another marketing now, you know, not only didn't it have that going for it, it didn't have something else. Because if you think about the record stores, they used to have just the covers in the racks. And
it didn't have a cover?
And because there's no cover, just sitting there was this clear plastic thing. So people actually had to know it was there and ask for it from
So you guys were
counter.
cooking.
So it's possibly
You were setting the world on fire, weren't you?
Yeah, the world's most expensive dud.
I love it. I love it. But look, at the end of the day, the Bushwackers became hugely successful. Where did you fit radio-wise? Was it country? Because it's different.
Not
country.
at all.
Yeah, I was going to say
actually,
it's not really like.
No, there was a big mistake once when we actually ended up with a instrumental track that got to number 12 on the 3XY Hot 100. But we were as surprised as anybody when in 1981 that song, The Flying Pieman, we got a phone call saying it's been nominated for a golden guitar in Tamworth. And we'd never been to Tamworth, of course, and we didn't know what a golden guitar was, and they said, well, you'll have to come to Tamworth. So we went to Tamworth and were absolutely horrified at what we saw. Because, I mean, we were, had long hair and cheesecloth and jeans and stuff. They were horrified as well, I might add.
I could just imagine.
And they were all, it was fairly straight traditional country at that time. And they used to line up when they have the awards. We were going to go home and this journalist said to us, no, the awards are tonight, you should stay. And we went, no, we've got no chance of winning. And in those days, they used to tell the journalists, but embargo the result, because they all had to file their stories for the deadlines. There was no, internet or any of that fancy business. And so this journalist said, no, I think you should stay. And we went, no, we're going home. She said, no, I really think you should stay. We went, ooh. And they used to do the awards in this great big top tent. And all the country music royalty used to sit down the front row, Buddy Williams and Slim Dusty. And the idea was that if you won something, you got to walk past them on your way up to receive your golden guitar and instrumental.
Shake hands.
Yes, shake hands. Instrumental track of the year was announced and we won. And these 6 guys in, as
the
I
front
said,
row.
Yeah, in cheesecloth and jeans and stuff, walked past these people. And I can remember to this day the look in Buddy Williams' eyes, and it said something along the lines of, "This is the death of country music." and we were as amazed as anybody. And after that, we were sort of, us and then bush music was drawn into the country world, which was great, because by that stage, the folk world had completely evaporated. It was
gone.
Absolutely gone here.
And so, of course, Bushwackers then were absorbed into the country.
Yeah, and we just spent all those 80s, especially, just playing in the Sydney pubs.
What about the bush dances and things like that?
That
was huge, wasn't it?
Absolutely huge. We were lucky enough to. We were looking to try and promote our own gigs, because we were doing the odd pub gigs, but it wasn't enough to keep us alive.
Keep you going, yeah.
And we had a very imaginative manager at the time, and he said, look, this bush dancing thing, it's really popular, because we just do one at a pub show or at an RSL or something, and everybody would get up and leap about. And he said, why don't we think about doing some dances? So we hired Centenary Hall at the Melbourne Showgrounds, and some friends of ours ran a restaurant, and so we advertised a bush dance with supper. And all these, it was literally amazing. We just advertised, and these hundreds and hundreds of people turned up. and it was a huge success. So
all sorts of people, or was it particular?
families and youngsters and old folks and everybody, and all had a marvellous time. So then we did them every 2 months for about 5 years, I suppose, and we come up with a theme. So, you know, we do a Melbourne Cup one and have sort of, you know, wheelbarrow races with people dressed as horses and, you know, that sort of daggy stuff. But we used to get about 2,000 people and feed them and everything. And then we started doing them in Sydney at the Sydney Town Hall. So, and then released the dance books to go with them, which have, bless their hearts, are in every school in the country. So there's a whole lot of, you know, everybody I meet who's 15 now has actually grown up doing one of the bush dances at primary school.
Well, speaking of schools, it's not really to do with school, but I mentioned before that, I first actually met you when you were at, was it Oz Music?
Yes, Oz Music, yeah.
What sent you off into that direction?
Well, it was, I was as amazed as anybody, I suppose, but I realised when we'd had children, because I'd spent, I don't know, 15 years touring.
Bushwackering?
Yeah, almost constantly. And then, of course, realised that if I was going to have a family, if you go out on the road, then you're likely to come home and find that the house is empty.
We'll take a short break. We'll be back soon with our guest, Dobe Newton.
Wrokdown.
Welcome back to Wrokdown. My special guest tonight is Dobe Newton. Well, we were at the Oz Music.
We were creeping up on the present.
The present. So all of these years at, as you said, in Melbourne Music Festival? Yeah?
Yeah, which was, went to God when Jeff Kennett withdrew the funding. Bless him.
God bless him.
That's all right, his football team's suffering, so I'm not unhappy about that. And then to TAFE, where I am now, teaching music business. My only qualification being that I've probably made every mistake that's possible.
Oh, stop it.
So, no, it's true. Well, you must have made a few.
You are one of the most respected lecturers.
Oh, now.
And also, actually, a bit of a specialist in folklore.
Yes, I'm actually, I've just enrolled to do a PhD in looking at the commercialisation of bush music. And I'm very excited because part of the project is to try and create a whole lot of recordings using a whole lot of contemporary artists. But then the thing I'm really excited about is making all the sound files available to everybody in Australia via the net so they can all make their own remixes and mash-up versions. And let's see what happens.
Well, that leads us up to today, because apart from you're going to start your, how many years is that going to take? PhD in folklore?
I don't know. It's supposed to only take 3 or 4
years.
Yeah, but there's plenty of time, yeah.
The Bushwackers never really ever disbanded.
No,
It just sort of evolved and different people came and went and came
Semi-retirement, I think we call it.
Semi-retirement.
We sort of do festivals and a few pubs and clubs around, so about 25 or 30 gigs a year, I guess.
So you're still doing that. However, a couple of years ago you decided to do something that you wanted to do for a long time.
Yes.
And that was make your own.
My own record.
Your own record.
Yes, indeed. In 1996, we, your wonderful partner Paul and I attended a songwriting workshop in Sydney, and I'd only seen him from afar, as in on stage before that.
I thought you meant from the other side of the bar. It was a bit more of afar, yeah. Right.
And we got on really well, and there were a whole lot of young songwriters there and us. And we were having a few drinks and having a chat, and we decided we'd write a song as well. And so we performed it that night, and the man who was running the songwriting workshop...
Get out of here and never come back.
Yes. was the boss of Warner Chappell in Australia, publishing company.
Is that John?
John Brommel. Yes, the wonderful John Brommel. And he loved the song, and he said, "Oh, that's fantastic." He said, "Look, you should make a solo album, and I'll send Paul some money and go and do it at Paul's studio." And so Paul and I went and did half a dozen songs and had a wonderful time and sent them back to John, and he said, "That's fantastic, I'll send you the rest of the money." And then by the end of the week he'd lost his job. And so we went.
Doesn't it always happen?
I know. So Paul and I went, "Oh,
Yeah.
bummer." So we put the tapes on the shelf, and, you know, he got on with his thing and I got on with mine. And then a couple of years ago, we were having a glass at the APRA Christmas party, I think it was. I think it was more than one glass, to be perfectly honest. And he said, "Look, we should actually finish this or forget all about it altogether."
And it's called?
It's called A Convict Can't Be Trusted.
Indeed.
Indeed. And it's true. Can't.
And it was wonderful. So congratulations on your first solo album after many, many years of being one of the fabulous Bushwackers, and still one of the fabulous Bushwackers. But now you have this solo career, and also good luck with your PhD in folk.
In whatever it is.
In whatever it is.
Yes, whatever it is.
We would like to thank Dobe Newton for being our guest this evening. Good night. See you next week.
Well, I've been to black tie dinners, hobnob with the social set, waste time making small talk to a crowd I just don't get. Now I drank with politicians and I dined with millionaires, but for things 5-star and caviar, man, I just don't really care. 'Cause there's nothing I like better than open fires and gold sunsets, laying under the stars, and old guitars are the things that I like best. Well, I've seen all kinds of places, into cities that don't close down, but I just can't wait to meet you at the gate to take me back to my hometown. 'Cause there's nothing I like better than open fires and gold sunsets, laying under the stars, and old guitars are the things that I like best. People say I'm crazy, I don't share their point of view. I've climbed the ladder and I really hate the view. Call me a fool to turn my back and walk away. I'm never going back laying under the stars, and old guitars are the things that I like best. Yeah, there's nothing